Good morning, Rotarians and guests.
Morning, Ron.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Jim Ahern.
Good morning. All of you, like me, have probably gone or will be going to graduations this year in years to come. And when I was thinking about something to say today and for the invocation, my wife asked me, how many graduations do you think we're going to go to? Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. How many graduations do you think we're going to go to? I said, over what period of time? She goes, I don't know. I said, well, all right. We figured it out between, junior highs still have graduation ceremonies, and junior high, high school, college, and probably after you're going for a master's or something like that. So we figured, I don't know, 15, 18, and then her side of the family. So I heard something on the radio last week, and it said, if you're going to a lot of these graduations, listen to however old you are, listen to what they're saying, because it's a lot of variation on the same thing, except if you saw the Ohio State one, that was a little bit different. The variation on the same thing, but it's for, in your future, the world is out there for you, etc. He said, don't listen to it for the kids, listen to it for you. Are you still doing that stuff? So I found a poem. Never stop learning. On this graduation day, all stand and give cheer to honor you for all the work you've done to get you here. As we rise and give applause, be sure you don't forget that learning is not over as your future plans are met. May you always be a listener and learn from all you meet. Always keep a student spirit and your life will be complete. Amen.
Thank you, Jim. And lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Kelly Brennan.
Good morning. You'll join me in the pledge. And wow, it's up. And can you join me in the things we think, say, and do? Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. And number 4. Bring it home. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And our president, Terry Borknick.
Sir. Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning, guests. Good morning to our service learning folks, faculty and students. We have a little housekeeping this morning. There is a Foundation Board of Directors meeting after this meeting today. They are going to have an opening on the Foundation Board for a member. So if it's something that you think you'd be interested in, talk to Keith, okay? And let's get that position filled. Correct, Keith? Okay. This month, our donations are going to the Kent Food Pantry. So any dry goods, staples, anything that they could keep on their shelves there. They're in very large need with inflation the way it is and stuff. There are a lot of people in need right now. So anything we can do to help, we're happy to do. It's Gala Week. So it's a big week for the Hudson Rotary, and Marilyn has a few last minute things. By the way, there is a card coming around for Jim Young. That's who the card is for, in case you didn't see that. He has suffered another stroke, correct, and is very ill. So there is a card coming around for everyone to sign, and we'll get that off to him. Okay. All right, Marilyn.
I have a clipboard that I'm going to be passing shortly. We are 2 days away from the gala. And this is for signups for people to come early the morning of to help us do the setup. There are a couple of things that we do then. We set up the silent auction space. We put together the name tags and some of the posters. We also check out the things like making sure the tables all look appropriate and everything like that. So it's the last chance to kind of prepare for the gala. And then at 6 o'clock, the gala actually begins, and I will need greeters there before that. We'd like to shift that a little bit. And remember, this year, Hudson Community First is going to be working the back end for us. Yes, 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 you can enjoy the gala and enjoy your guests. So they'll be doing the registration. They'll be doing the live auction collection, and they'll also be distributing the certificates at the end of the evening. Okay. I may need some help selling raffle tickets. This year, the raffles are being done slightly differently. We're doing something in which you buy a block of raffle tickets and then place whatever ticket you want right in front of the poster for the items. Remember, there are 4 raffles. Right now we have 15 bottles of wine, 14 select bourbons. So we'll have 2 flights of those. And then the last raffle is the date night for a year, featuring Lannings and Lock Keepers. Those are the out-of-town restaurants that we've featured, and we have a valuation of $1,250 on that because Barbara Marshall talked to Lannings into giving us a $150 gift certificate. It's been really fun this year because our committee has been very active and large. We'll have a committee meeting and have between 8 and 10 Rotarians there. And really the best part of this whole thing is we get to know each other better. And it's working for a common goal. And I'm also so excited about the people who are coming. Allison Feaster is coming to our gala this year. So is Liz Kwolek, and Nicole Kowalski is coming. So these are some Rotarians that don't often come to our meetings because of their busy schedules. So it's going to be great fun. Hope you have a good time that night, and I'll look forward to talking to you next week with a good report. At this point, I just need to give you one last thing, and that is if you have any guests that you know may be coming, let me know. I have to turn in food orders by noon today. So we are at this point over 150, and racing in towards the end. So anyway, noon today is our hard and fast deadline. We want to make sure we have enough food for everyone who comes. So we'll circulate this and we'll see you Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. All right, looking forward to it. Should be a great evening. Typically is. Mr. Shearer would like to speak to us. It's that time of year. It's Boy Scout cleanup day. Oh, he came prepared today.
And contrary to popular opinion, I had other clothing in my closet this morning. So if those of you who have been to Camp Manitowoc and have seen our main pool area and the shower house, you see that there's a big Rotary logo that says Hudson Rotary on that sign. And the reason we get to have that Hudson Rotary sign on that building is begin first Saturday in June, we gather and we help do the spring cleanup of that building. So the first Saturday in June this year is June 1st. So June 1st, 9 a.m., we're going to meet out at camp. And Marilyn always does a great job of bringing grandkids and helping clean lockers. So we need as many hands make light work. So we have the sign up sheet. If you would sign up, we'll bring it back next week also. So if you have to check your calendars, but we need all of you to show up on Saturday, June 1st at 9 o'clock. Breakfast, there'll be a light breakfast served, and there's also lunch provided. So it's even better than a Rotary meeting.
For sure. Okay, with that, I think we will turn to our service learning. And good morning to everyone. Oh, hey, I forgot one more thing. We who went to the service learning luncheon Friday had a great day and we had a great showing. There were like 10 Rotarians who went. It was a great day. If you didn't do it this year, you should participate next year. It was really fun talking to the kids and getting to know a few of them. And then we had a great pizza lunch. And so it was really a good day.
So, good morning, Rotarians. Oh, lovely. So looking forward to our very last meeting with you for the academic year. We're wrapping up the year. The seniors' last day is Friday. And on Monday, before our senior awards ceremony, we're going to have our end of the year service learning banquet where all of our students will receive their presidential service awards that they will wear at graduation, which is Thursday next week at Blossom. So with that, we're then turning immediately to the class of 2025. So as soon as they're out the door, we're going to be placing next year's class at all of their service sites and getting ready for the fall. So thank you again for all of your support this year through so many of our different activities, and we definitely will be coming back to you in the 2024-25 school year. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first student who's with us today, and that's McKenna Laughlin.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. As Mr. Bach said, my name is McKenna Laughlin, and I'm a service learning student here at Hudson. And so I'll talk about both my sites both the first semester and second semester. So my first semester site was the Streetsboro Community Pantry. So I was at a food pantry, and it was primarily I was just with a bunch of older women, and we had different colored bags and carts that we would take out to people that were in need in the city of Streetsboro. And primarily my time there was, for the most part, kind of just rooted in building interpersonal relationships with the older women there. So I got to talk to them about life and whatever and how they were doing. And they asked me about all my updates going on in life. So it was really just a cool experience to be able to be with the women and to just step out of the Hudson bubble to even just experience a little bit of what people are in need. Just in Streetsboro, a community right next to us. And then my second semester site, the one that I'm currently at, and then today's my last day there actually, and sadly, it's very sad. I'm going to be sad to leave them. I'm at Helen Arnold, which is a Akron public school, and I'm in a class of fourth graders. And these kids are just so awesome. They are so full of love, and they're so they hunger for so much love and attention, and they're really just great kids. And it's just really cool because having a younger person there, I'm 18, so having a younger person there, they're just they look up to me in a way where they don't go to the teacher for some things, but they instead come to me for it if they feel more comfortable about it. And it's just really cool to be with them. I just help them with their schoolwork and if they want to talk and whatever. It's just been a really cool experience, and I'm really thankful for both experiences that I've got to have. They've been very different experiences, but both of them have been so wonderful, and I've been very lucky to have been placed at both of these sites. And I always remember my time at both of these. They've really changed my life for sure. And just being able to step out and experience a community that is a little less fortunate than me. And it's just been really amazing to be with these kids. And service learning as a whole has just been a really great experience. And I'm going to be sad to leave the program. It's been awesome. And I would always recommend it to any of the classmates in the grade below. And so next year after graduation, I'll be attending the Ohio State University, and I'm going to be studying marketing. I'm not completely sure what I want to do, but I know I'll figure it out because business is a very broad area of study. So I know I'll figure it out, but that's my plan. So thank you guys.
Hello, Rotary. Thank you for having us again. I'm Gina Vonville, and I also work with the Service Learning Program. I wanted to very quickly say thank you so much for all you've done all year, but particularly for coming out last week and kind of shepherding our students into adulthood, talking to them about some of your experiences, some of the experiences of your children, your grandchildren. So that they can kind of contextualize some of the nervousness they're having or some of the sadness they're having about leaving. So we really appreciated you guys doing that. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Scott Bayless, who is a student that I had as a junior last year in my class. And I was overjoyed that we got him in service learning again this year. He's been a standout. He's going to talk about his service experiences and also his future plans.
Hello, as Ms. Fonville said, thank you for having me today. So for service learning, I chose to do service learning because honestly, I didn't get into another class, but I'm so glad. No, trust me. I am so glad that I did because this class has honestly changed the way I live my life. So my first semester, I was at the Salvation Army Learning Zone in Akron. So the Learning Zone is basically the preschool section of that Salvation Army, I guess, quarter. I don't really know how to put it, but I got to hang out all Tuesday and Wednesday with a bunch of 5-year-olds and build Legos with them. And it was honestly a lot of fun. But then I got put at Harris Jackson, which is an elementary school in Akron, and I was with 3rd graders. And I didn't really do anything much different at that school, and I still don't do anything different. I'm actually headed there after this. And I just kind of help them with math. I sit at the back of the class, and at both sites, I realized that I didn't actually do very much. But what I'm always reassured of by the teachers, by the students, and by even these teachers, the teachers in the classroom and my teachers, is that even though it doesn't seem like I'm doing very much, I'm actually making such a big difference in these kids' lives just by being there and by being a role model. And that's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about, was being a role model. As McKenna had mentioned before, one of the things that I've learned is that kids are very, very impressionable. They want to do either exactly what you're doing or exactly the opposite of what you're doing, or what you tell them to do or not do. And though they are 5 and 9-year-olds, I guess the same thing kind of applies to adults as well. And that's one thing I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life, is just through this experience, I realized how much my character and the way I hold myself and the way I act in front of other people has such an effect on everybody. But to close this out, next year I'm headed to the Coast Guard Academy, and I will be studying mechanical engineering. So I just wanted to say thank you again for having us here, and hope you all have a good day.
Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Again, we love hearing from you and seeing what your plans are, and we're always proud of our Hudson students. And we're proud of Marty and Gina also. We're always proud of our staff. We're very proud of our staff here in Hudson. Okay, Mr. Bayless. He was a mayor too, right? Dave, Basil. There you go. It was a
Thank you, President Terry. And don't worry, I answer to anything. Good morning, fellow Rotarians and guests. Today, we are going to continue our theme of Law Day expanded into Law Month. One of the things that is most important as we consider the impact of laws is the role of transparency in good governance and in just the way things work in our nation. And important in that effort to create that sense of transparency are what we know as the sunshine laws. Today, we're fortunate to have 2 members of the League of Women Voters address the question of sunshine laws and their role, both locally and statewide and nationally. Mara McCaughey is the current Observer Corps Program Manager for the League of Women Voters of Hudson. She is a past president of the Hudson League, and her involvement in the League brings her career full circle. Her first job out of law school was with the General Counsel's Office of the Federal Elections Commission, where the League was well known as a nonpartisan political organization. She practiced law with several small firms and has lived with her family in Washington, D.C., Wilmington, North Carolina, and since 1997 here in Hudson. She also fondly recalls being recognized by the Monroeville, Pennsylvania Rotary Club when she was her high school's newspaper's editor-in-chief. We also have our own member, Dr. Mimi Becker. She has been with the League for more than 50 years. She was co-founder of the Northern Portage County League of Women Voters, has served on the board of the League of Women Voters of Hudson since 2017. She is co-chair of the League's Climate Crisis and Environmental Sustainability Work Group. As most of you probably know, she holds a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology Anthropology from Carleton College, a master's degree in Environmental Policy Sciences and Economics, and a PhD in Environmental Sciences and Sustainable Development from Duke University. Join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome to today's speakers, Mimi and Mara.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. So I will start off with who we are, the League of Women Voters. Our motto is making democracy work, and this is our mission statement. We are a nonpartisan political organization. We encourage the informed and active participation in government, and we work to increase understanding of major public policy issues. And we, sorry, I can see it. And we work to influence public policy through education and advocacy. Want to highlight our nonpartisan nature. We never support or oppose any one political candidate or political party. But as is clear from our mission statement, we are very interested in issues that we have positions on, and mostly those, frankly, concerned with democracy, voting, representative government, et cetera. And, excuse me, next slide, please. So we believe that our Observer Corps program is really League in action. If the active involvement of all people is what makes a functioning democracy, that again is part of our mission statement to increase participation and involvement in government, then that's exactly what our Observer Corps does. We, as a league, have a long history of seeking transparency and accountability in government, and we believe that that requires a watchful diligence. The right to know is always under pressure to be less unless there's someone watching, right? Unless we, as a democracy, remain involved and active, democracy doesn't work as it should. So we believe that our observers keep our elected and appointed officials on notice, and they help us to make sure that issues that are facing our community are being held in the open. That's the whole idea. So next slide, please. So why Observer Corps? Well, if we really do want transparency and accountability, we believe that that needs to be watched. It's the government's responsibility to protect our right to know, but it's also our rights as citizens to make sure that the government is doing that. And so at its core, no pun intended, what our Observer Corps does is act in a citizen capacity. Any citizen can do what we do, frankly, but we do it on behalf of the League, observe public meetings in our local area. The Sunshine Laws, which we will get to, are self-help laws, and so there's no government entity in charge of enforcing them. If there's a violation of a Sunshine Law, then a citizen, any person, needs to bring an action in common pleas court in the county in which it occurred. So that's one of the main reasons why Observer Corps exists, to see that those sunshine laws are enforced. So what's government role in that? Well, we believe that it's a two-way street here, right? I mean, our government officials are our elected officials, but they work for us. So how can they encourage citizen participation? We believe that if the government entities, the public bodies are adhering to sunshine laws, then that will increase and promote involvement by the citizens. We also, as the League in our Observer Corps, can recommend policies that we call best practices not necessarily maybe adhering to the exact letter of the sunshine laws, but continuing to promote that goal of accountability and transparency in government, and therefore involvement by citizens. Next slide, please. So let's try to get to know the law. This is not a law school class. I don't have even an hour. So this will be a brief overview, but what are we talking about? Sunshine or openness, just what it sounds like, right? Letting the light in. Our government works for us, and so it should be open. There are two main parts of Ohio's sunshine laws, the Open Record Act, which is access to public records, and the Open Meetings Act, which is access to public meetings. All of these, Mimi is holding up the gold book, the yellow book, we call it. The government of Ohio, the Ohio Attorney General's office, publishes this manual, and it is a wealth of information. Reading statutes is the first thing to do. Whatever the law says is what you should do, but reading statutes is also a great way to cure your insomnia. And so having a manual like this put out in the Attorney General's office, which explains the law, is really a valued resource. It's available online to anyone and is also available for you to purchase in a hard copy like Mimi has. So as observers, while we have had an occasion to use the Freedom of Information Act, that's the federal, or FOIA, that you all probably are familiar with that acronym, that's part of the Open Record Act. We as observers are more concerned with the, or have more of a daily involvement with the Open Meeting Act and those requirements. So next slide, please. So what are the requirements of open meetings? Well, frankly, it's open, right? Government does its business and should do its business in the open. So city council meetings, school board meetings, government, the boards and commissions under the Hudson City Council, those are all held in the open and need to be. And those are all public entities that we as the League of Women Voters of Hudson observe. So what you need to have, according to the law, is notification of when those meetings occur. There are specific requirements about regularly scheduled meetings, and time and place of the meetings need to be something that's readily available to the public. And the law does state not specific requirements of time, but rather notice that's consistent, appropriate, and effective. And I do have to say that our involvement with observing the league, our involvement as a league with observing our local entities has been one of, we are impressed, frankly, with the how the city of Hudson runs its government and its boards and commissions. Especially, you know, over the last, as we all know, it seems like only a few years, as my children remind me, it's been many years that the internet has been a thing. But, you know, our website is fabulous, frankly. I mean, it's accessible, it's well, it's kept up to date. So it's really a wealth of information. It frankly makes it much easier, I think, for the public to be involved in the government when what you want to know is at the click of a button. And it is available to most of us. We're fortunate for that, of course. So the notification is one requirement. The meeting itself needs to be open, right? Open discussion, open deliberations. We need to know how and why a public body reached the decision that it did. There are, of course, exceptions to that, and things like executive session are one major exception, that there are reasons why sometimes a government entity needs to operate outside of the public record, dealing with personnel issues, dealing with security issues. But for the most part, the everyday operation of our government should be conducted in the open in these meetings. And then the third main requirement is that there are minutes of some sort that do accurately reflect what happened in that meeting. And those minutes become part of the public record, which of course brings us back to the Public Records Act. Next slide, please. And so briefly, what are public records? Well, they are really most anything that the government entities, that the public bodies use to conduct their business. And there are specific requirements about how those need to be maintained and organized by the public entity. The sunshine laws require that each public body provide clear policies and procedures for how those should be published and made readily available to the public. And anyone can request a public record for no reason other than you're a citizen and you're entitled to know. So that's the really great. And then, of course, they need to also have retention and disposition schedules. There's only so much information we can keep, even though our information can be kept in tinier and tinier little devices these days. There's still policies about how those retention and disposition schedules are kept. And as long as there are policies and they're adhered to, that's the requirement of the Act. Next slide, please. So again, back to what we do as observers. As the League, we have goals for our observer corps, and we observers who, this is our goal, can understand compliance of sunshine laws. We require our members who volunteer, and of course, like you all, we're a volunteer organization. We ask them to attend a one-time training session, which gives them the overview of sunshine laws. We also meet annually just to review any updates that have happened. And we also want them to be able to identify and promote best practices in government. And one example of a best practice, for example, you'll note in the open meeting slide, there was nothing about an agenda. It's really great to have an agenda when you conduct a meeting, as you probably all know, but it's not a requirement of sunshine laws, but it is a best practice, right? And so that's something that we will and have encouraged entities in the past to enact. And then once you do enact that policy of having an agenda, is it followed? Have you let everyone know of the agenda? Have there been changes, any changes that have been made? Have they been communicated? And the next part of what we want our observers to do is, and in addition to acting in a citizen capacity of simply observing these meetings, we want them to become acquainted with our League of Women Voters, national, state, regional, and local positions. Those are all available through our website. And the reason why we want them to be familiar with those positions is their role as observers then, again, not just to make sure that there's compliance with sunshine laws, but also to be able to come back and report to us as the League when there are things happening that we as the League may be interested in. For example, our observers of the school board were able to tell us months before the school levy was put on the ballot that, hey, it sounds like the school board may be considering a levy. And so we as the League were then able, because we have a local position that is in favor of a well-educated public school system, we're able to study that levy, consider it, and decide whether to voice our approval or not approval of it. Again, in a nonpartisan way, not supporting any candidate or party, but supporting the issue of a school levy. And we think that their involvement, our observers' involvement in observing these meetings, gives them understanding of government structure and operation, gets them to know public officials, and that just helps to establish an effective line of communication between us as a political organization and our local government. Importantly, I think, is our consistent observation. This isn't just a one-time deal. You may go to a meeting because you're interested or just want to know about a public meeting, but we have our observers regularly attend many public meetings here in Hudson, and we believe that it's that consistent observation that helps to ensure compliance with sunshine law and initiates any advocacy that we as the League may choose to do. Next slide. Sorry, next slide. And so just so that you know what it is we do, it's not nothing that we do in secret, certainly. We ask our observers to follow these following routines. Before the meeting, check the website, which is, again, where most of the information comes from these days. Is there notice of the meeting? Is there an agenda? Have there been minutes? The day of the meeting, review again to see if any changes to the agenda, any pre-meeting documents that may be available. And then they attend the meeting, whether on site or online, and record relevant information on a report form. During our training, we ask our observers to remember these three things. They are there to observe, record, and report. We don't participate as citizens when we are there with our League pin and our League hat observing a meeting. We instead report the information observe it and report it, and then record it and report it back to the league with any relevant findings after the meeting. We actually printed copies of our little report form. Our report form is actually 2 pages. I only have the first page because that's sort of the checklist of sunshine requirements. The second page is really just where we as the league our observers can make notes or relay information about issues that that we as a league may be interested in. Not that that's secret either, but figured that the first page is what is most relevant to sunshine laws. So that's sunshine law in a nutshell. And I will now turn it over to Mimi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We'll switch positions. If you want to give that to Tom, he'll stick it in the mic for later. Yeah. Since if I stand behind there, I disappear. It's the, one of the things about devolution is that you shrink. I did. Okay. So I'm going to, if you can go to the next slide, Noah. So we've learned about the sunshine and the public meetings policy. So, and most of us have a gut feeling about why this might matter. But what I'd like to do is to take us through a bit about how people who do understand the process of how the sausage gets ground or how policy gets made and implemented, why the sunshine is so important. And so it's really a basic ingredient if we're going to make democracy work. And so this means a public that can actually effectively participate. That's when you get accountable democracy. We all complain and carry on about all the terrible things that go on in government, and we have no one to thank but ourselves. So I'm going to just summarize some of the opportunities and the ways that we can make a difference as citizens. Next slide, please. Probably the first thing, as Maura did, which is to describe what public participation means. And this is a generally accepted definition. And it's really the basic means by which our concerns, the public, our needs, our values, and our expertise are incorporated in some way into the decision process of governmental bodies, and in certain cases in private private entities. And the best way to get at the private entities is to have them have any small portion of federal money. If they do, they are publicly accountable for more things than they are if they're just subject to the law. And so we have to have both the sunshine laws and access to public records and documents and the evidence of how these bodies function. Next slide, please. In order to do that, the public needs access to accurate, reliable information about what's going on. Well, traditionally, this has been the role of the fourth estate in this country in terms of widespread distribution of information has been the press, whether it's the radio or the television, or in the past, the huge impacts have been through the news, the newspapers and news media. Well, we are all now in a local news desert. If we get the hub at all, it appears on Sunday, usually after things have happened. And there is declining access in small communities and actually nationwide in rural areas to reliable, objective news. Most people now get their news from social media, which is notoriously unreliable. And most people do not have the skills to do accurate fact checking. So one of the reasons that we have so run amok with respect to democracy has to do with the declining role of the media. And there's one more thing we should be constantly aware of, and that is the fact that most of the media have been bought up by a very limited number of corporations that you can name on one hand. And they control all of the news media that gets distributed, with the exception of public broadcasting, which Congress is currently proposing to get rid of, at least the House. So keep that in mind. We need broadly distributed, accurate news of the issues that should be of concern to us. Next slide. So one of the protections that we have is that the particularly since the mid-60s and the civil rights laws and the plethora of laws to restore and protect the environment, and also to protect labor. We have a lot of legislative policy that mandates or permits citizen participation of one sort or another. We have a lot of regulatory bodies that are after controlling the behavior of business or the behavior of us with respect to a whole series of things. And we've got enough acronyms and initials to fill a dictionary, but the most common ones that we might be familiar with are things like the Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Drug Administration, the Department of Defense, Department of Commerce, Transportation, the TSA, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. We have a lot of planning and zoning codes at various, related to various entities. There's a lot of regulatory opportunities with respect to public lands management. So there are all kinds of open doors. Most people don't know about them or choose to use them if they do, but we do have the foundational tools. And in the judicial arena, citizens have explicit legal standing in certain pieces of legislation where if the government's not doing what the government has been ordered to do by the legislation it passed upon itself, you have the right to sue the government. You have standing in the relevant court jurisdiction. And there are a number of federal acts in particular that specify what that standing means and how the organization that's the overseer has responsibility to implement it and to ensure that its goals are met. So in some cases, citizens have the right to sue a polluting organization. They can do it individually if they're being harmed, or sometimes they put together a citizen suit. And that goes on. And then in this country, we inherited a lot of the British common law traditions where if a neighbor is doing something that harms you and doesn't take reasonable care, that may initiate your right to standing in the courts as a form of citizen participation. In my global travels, if people don't know anything else about the US and law, they get confused about how unruly our democracy is, but they're terrified that we're going to sue them for something because that is somehow or other, we have a reputation for doing this. So it's one part of one kind of participation that is often, unfortunately, overused. Okay, so next slide. So how does it work if you're going to do some kind of formal citizen participation? What are your options? And remember, this all depends on access to the process and the information. So the hope is that the result of citizen participation is that we get better decisions because you have a better feeling for what's at stake. And if you're going to actually get a good policy, then implementation depends on commitment by both the regulating authority, the implementing authority, and the people being regulated. Because you have to have monitoring and compliance in order for us to solve some of these problems. So if we don't want the sewage treatment plants that serve Hudson to be dumping raw sewage in the river, whose water the people downstream have to drink, then there has to be some monitoring and in many cases, opportunities for the people that are having to drink that water to take action to say, okay, you got to get an order from a judge to make them comply. We get that. Hudson has had some of those orders in the past. Okay, so the problem, usually we have public policy because we need to solve problems that have emerged that aren't dealt with by the market. The economists call that an externality, and government has to step in to safeguard the public health, safety, and welfare. So the process of solving a problem that affects the public requires an accurate definition of the problem. And if you're sitting in the city council and you don't live in that ward, or you aren't subject to the problem, you might not know what its dimensions are. And if we're going to have good policy, you have to know what the sources and the causes of the problem are, so that when you set your goal for what you want to see in the future instead, you have an accurate description of the problem. We have a really bad habit of misspecifying the problem when you get legislators like some of the ones in Columbus that have been trying to manipulate the educational policy in the state, who really know nothing about the reality in which public school systems have to function. So you have to have this capacity with respect to governance. And a lot of what the Observer Corps does is to assess the evolving capacity of the entity that they're observing to address the problem that's been dumped in its lap. Next slide, please. Okay, and how do we do this? Well, minimally, we should be showing up at the polls when we have an election. On average, maybe in a hot year, 30% of the qualified voters in this country will show up to vote, which is probably one of the worst records on the planet with respect to participation in a democracy. We should do better. But beyond the voting, there's the opportunity for public comment. And that occurs in Hudson at almost every single meeting of any public body that represents a school district or the city count or the city, and increasingly the library board, which is also is a public body, is paying attention to this. So you can present testimony when there's an opportunity to do that, when they call a public hearing. You can submit letters specific to recommendations or your concern to the body. You can formally lobby if there's a group of people or an organization that has a position, they can do that. You can volunteer to serve on a task force or a commission. So you have a whole range of ways to participate. Regulatory bodies are more specific in many situations. For example, if somebody decides they want to build a solar farm, they have to go to the power siting board in Ohio to have, there's a whole administrative hearing process, administrative process of discovery that the entity goes through before it makes a decision. Public has an opportunity to participate in that. And you'll find, if you read the legal notices, you'll find those. If you're interested in an issue that's covered by a regulatory body, you can communicate with their Office of Public Information and say, you want to be noticed on every decision or any decision that has to do with, I don't know, sewers or whatever the subject matter is, and they will have to notice you. And it can be done by email or by hard copy, whatever you specify. There are advisory committee services that you can be on an advisory board or a task force that is set to make a recommendation to the decision body. So there are many ways you can do that. And then there are some constitutionally enabled independent bodies that are really critical. And there is an issue on the agenda right now where there's an attempt by a coalition of organizations, full disclosure, the League is one of them, that is trying to get our state less gerrymandered, less having voting districts that look like the snake on the lake or 4 congressional districts for the city of Akron. And they're trying to get the politicians, present and past, off the body that makes the decisions about the boundary and have it all be citizens. 5 citizens from each of the major parties and 5 independents, and let them have at it with very specific instructions. So that's it's a constitutional amendment, and it's an attempt to make our voting districts more equitable. That's an example. Public school boards in Ohio have been constitutionally enabled, as have some of these other organizations. So there are different, and each of them has a different kind of tactic. So the next slide just simply summarizes what Hudson bodies normally do. Now, very often, if you take a look at that list, there's an opportunity for citizens to do many different kinds of things. And if you have any indication of how many of those things are because over time there have been citizen groups like the League and other organizations that have asked for these kinds of initiatives to be embedded in the process that we use to conduct our governance. This is not true in every town or every city, but the ones that have good government, you'll find most of these characteristics at the local level. It's harder as you go up, but those are some of the main principles and the main tools that we have to make our governance operate in the sunshine to serve the public interest. That's what government's about. It's about serving the public interest. So if there are questions, we have a couple minutes and we're prepared to either tell you we know or don't know. Father Joe.
Thank you both. Yeah, what a great presentation. And thank you for your service to our country. Yeah, great stuff. Not so much germane to sunshine laws, but in more your mission in general. I was thinking about this quote from Churchill, where he says, democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others, right? So,
Yep.
But part of that quote is that anybody who's read through comments on Facebook, like took 10 minutes, might have thought to yourself, these people should not be voting. They have no business in governing society. Do you ever feel conflicted about the idea of trying to get greater participation in democracy when sometimes maybe that's not helpful?
Have at it, Mark.
So I do understand the question, and I think two things. First, I have my, it's not mine, another good quote about democracy. I actually researched this. The line, "Life is not a spectator sport," was actually attributed to Jackie Robinson. And a refugee from World War II, a female who escaped from Austria, changed it to say, "Democracy is not a spectator sport." And maybe this touches a bit on the answer to your question. Everyone from Michael Moore to George Shultz, who of course was Reagan's Secretary of State, have repeated that comment. Democracy is not a spectator sport. And so I think the more involved and educated you are in your democracy, in the goings on of government, the more effective citizen you can be. We all come with biases, with views, with, we're not all about, we're a function of how we were raised, right? Religious beliefs we have, how we were educated, where we grew up. I think the point about democracy not being the best form of government, except there's nothing better, is because there's such a mix of people, right? We all come from that. I mean, that is the great thing about our country, right? We do have lots of points of views. That's many times the not so great thing about our country, that we do have many points of views. But the whole gist of democracy is that we all can participate. And so, yes, I may not enjoy sitting down with somebody whose views that make me cringe, but we have to work together, right? I mean, that's sort of the whole point, one of the whole points of what we as the league believe in. We have to have everybody's participation. And that's the whole idea of voting. Another point, I'm sorry, I probably could go on for much longer. I'll try to cut it off at this point. We think that some people, you've heard people say from the opposite point of what you're saying, that maybe we don't want some people involved, but what about all the other people who aren't involved? Why is there such apathy? And one thing that we discussed as a league, I think this came out of a convention a few years ago, was that it's not necessarily apathy that prohibit people from becoming involved, it's that they don't know. And none of us like to be involved in things that we don't know. The league itself, really, one more point. The league itself was established because once the 19th Amendment was passed and this whole slew of population had the right to vote, where do we go? How do we register? How do we find out about the candidates? How do we find out about the issues? And that's why the league developed to educate and inform. If that touched a little bit on your answer, and if it didn't, I apologize.
I was going to add just one more thing. And then James. Okay. Well, okay. But the one more thing is my experience in a lot of the work that I've done around not just the US, but elsewhere, is if you can get a explicitly recruit a diverse group of people with different perspectives, and you can get them to sit down and learn together about the problem. Don't focus on the differences. Get them to agree on the nature of the problem. Very often, you're totally surprised about the final result.
I just want to make an announcement as a city council person. We are looking for someone for the planning commission but you have to be a resident of Ward 1. And it's for a partial term. So if you really want to participate, please, if you live in Ward 1, apply for that planning commission seat. Thank you.
Here,
We can exchange time.
Thank you so much, Maura and Mimi. Very informative. We appreciate the time you spent in this presentation.
Yes.
Did everybody check your pockets? I have a phone here that someone left out in the dining area evidently. Whose is it? It is. I could upgrade mine. Nobody? Oh, okay. I thought you were pointing at someone. Okay. Oh yeah, it does look like your grandkids. No, not right now. Okay. Ron would like a moment to talk about the Memorial Day Parade.
Gala is only 2 days away, but the Memorial Day Parade's only 10 days away. And I need 3 people. We need somebody carrying the flag. And then we need 2 people carrying a banner in front of this year, 2 convertibles that'll be carrying the scholarship winners. So we don't have a place to put them on the truck this year, so we will just have the banner in front of the 2 cars with the scholarship winners in them. And the scholarship winners, when we interviewed them, were all excited about being on that. So we hope that, I'm not sure if we got one that's in the band, but they were all excited about being there. So we do need 3 people who are capable of walking about a mile very slowly. So just see myself, and we've only got 10 days. So think about it real quick.
Thank you, Ron. Okay. Our Rotabuck is a $9 payout today. So Mimi, would you do the honors, please? Even though, oh, okay, because you have a vested in. Thank you, Maura. Okay, the big winner, 614375. 375. Okay. Mike is the big winner today. That's the proper democratic procedure, right? Okay, Ron, let's see if you can make it a big banner day. Yeah, yeah, actually we did. You're right. That's the Rotabuck. Yeah, that's the $9. Okay. Ready? Oh, so close. So close, but no cigar. For the food bank? Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, that will do it for today. Oh, wait. Oh, did everybody sign the card for Jim? Is there anybody who needs to? Okay, all right, well, here. Yeah, finish signing that. I need to sign it too. Okay, we'll see everybody at the gala. Get out there, make it a great day. If you have any guests, don't forget to get their food choices into Maryland by noon.